Alright, so you finally won the Genshin Impact lottery, and you pulled Diluc. Now how do we gear him? What artifacts do we want? How do we DPS not like a pleb? Let's get into it. So here I just wanted to show off most of his general playstyle. He's got a good 3-hit E skill that will let you deal fire damage, which is what you're going to want to be doing most of the time that you're playing. His ult will give you fire damage, so your basic 4-hit will switch to it. And honestly, the biggest thing about playing Diluc is make sure you're not dealing white damage as much as possible. Whenever you're forced to deal white damage like I'm about to now, you want to switch to somebody else and start generating your ult if you don't currently have it. I do, so I'm going to use it. And get back to dealing your fire damage. For this reason, generally speaking, increasing your pyro damage is probably your best call. Now this domain really shows how well he can perform because most of the enemies in here are ice, and most of his damage is going to come from both the cryo and electro reactions. In this case, most of the enemies here are going to be real weak to fire, so it can really show what kind of damage you can put out. See, we're hitting like a couple thousand each hit, critting for 6k-ish. And while he is an incredibly bursty character, his burst comes in a line of damage. So like ultimate, and then his E skills will hit for each a couple thousand, and then over time he's just consistently dealing damage. And once you've run out of the actual damage that you're about to deal, like I'm about to right now, because the fire enchantment is going to wear off, you want to switch to somebody else who can sustain you for a while. While he is a main DPS carry, he does somewhat rely on his teammates, but not to a huge extent. Alright, as far as weapons go, Diluc is pretty straightforward. We're going to go through a couple of each rank, but honestly, obviously, you should be shooting as high as you can. Of the first tier, I wouldn't recommend you go any lower than 3 stars, and I guarantee you have some of these weapons since you pulled the Diluc. The Debate Club is probably your best choice for a 3-star weapon. You can easily refine it to 5, and then it outclasses even lower refs of higher tiers. Like, it could theoretically outdamage a 0-ref 5-star weapon, but we'll get into that. But the Debate Club, really good option since it increases your attack here, and its passive allows you to burst real hard, and Diluc is all about bursting. He specifically can use the Debate Clubs to a great effect, specifically because of this effect here. After using an elemental skill, normal or charged attacks on hit deal an additional 60, 75, 90, 105, 120 attack in a small area. This effect lasts 15 seconds. Damage can only occur once every 3 seconds. Now, in my experience, this once every 3 seconds thing is a lie. Since, with Diluc's E, you can hit E, make him do his first piece, swing right afterwards, and you want to, we'll get into that in the advanced section. Swing right afterwards, proc this attack, proc this explosion, swing again with your E, and then when you swing again, it will not have been 3 seconds, yet you still will explode with this weapon. And you can use that to great effect, especially on a 3-star weapon. Now, as far as 4-star weapons go, that's the only 3-star that you really want to be looking at. As far as 4-star weapons go, the most accessible and the easiest one, in my opinion, to use is the prototype Aminus, as it works the exact same way as the Debate Club. It's also a craftable weapon, so that is an incredibly easy to source weapon for your Diluc. On hit, normal and charged attacks have a 50% chance to deal an additional X attack damage, which is higher than the Debate Club. To enemies within a small radius, can only occur once every 15 seconds. I have not checked to see if this one is bugged like the Debate Club, and if you're able to use it after every single E, but either way, this will have a lot more attack damage to make up for the effect lost on the Debate Club over time, but I only recommend that you switch to this one after Ref 3 if you have a refined 5 Debate Club. Another weapon that I recommend in the 4-star tier is the Rain Slasher here. If you got a lot of them, I recommend it. I'd say at Ref 3 or 4. If you're using a Hydro or Electro character in your party, you should use this over a Ref 5 Debate Club. Increases damage against enemies affected by Hydro or Electro by up to 40%. Now this weapon's really, really good if you're going to combine it with somebody else who's using this element in your party. Obviously, if you don't use an Electro or Hydro in your party, then don't use this weapon. But it can really increase his burst damage since he's going to be proccing a lot of elements. Now 5-star weapons, you can use the Serpent Spine. I think it's really good. So the effect here is that every 4 seconds a character is on the field, they will deal 6% more damage and take 3% more damage. This effect is a maximum of 5 stacks, will not reset if the character leaves the field, but will be cleared if the character takes damage. This weapon's really high risk, high reward. If you're a high skill player, this can really pay off for you, but I think there are better choices in general. This one might be better on a Razor or a Badu, somebody who's going to be on the field more often. Diluc will want to swap out a little more often than this is worth your time. Moving on, any 5-star weapon is clearly a great weapon for Diluc, our boy here. However, if we're going to highlight one, we're talking Wolf's Gravestone. Wolf's Gravestone increases your base attack flat. All 5-star weapons do that. And then on hit against enemies less than 30% HP, you increase all party members' attack by 40 to 80% for 12 seconds. This basically turns Diluc's damage dealing into a little bit of a support carry. Also, it helps when you're switching off of Diluc so that you can switch onto other characters while you're only on your white damage phase. Skyward Pride is a really good weapon as well for Diluc. It would take a second tier to the Wolf's Gravestone, as this just kind of gives him a whole nother dimension as a switch out as well, but Skyward Pride can do a good job as well. Diluc is all about spamming his ultimate, getting that fire enchantment and dealing more fire damage, and this energy recharge secondary really helps, as well as the effect on the weapon that increases the damage that you're dealing immediately after using your ult while you have your fire enchantment. It really works well, but you get it through the gacha, so if you don't have it, don't use it. As far as artifacts go, Diluc is pretty straightforward, as he is your main DD, and DDs tend to get the same artifacts. We're going to go over from early game, mid game, and then late game what you should be shooting for. Now let's talk about what stats you want to be looking for in the early game. We're talking about ranks 1 through 35 before you can get Gladiator's pieces. Off the bat, you want to be looking for just straight up attack. Flat attack, percent attack, anything that you can get on your gear will be beneficial to you. Once you've got those two stats on any given piece of gear, you want to be targeting crit rate and then crit damage. At the end of the day, attack is actually worth more to you than any set bonus at this point in the game. So if you can maximize your attack without even worrying about set bonuses, you're probably still in a really good spot. Now, the Berserker set helps you build like you're in the end game without actually building like that. In the beginning, you're going to be looking for attack, right? Which means a lot of times you're going to be throwing crit to the wayside, and Berserker gets you covered on that front. Let's look at it. The 2-piece set gives you increased flat 12% increased crit rate, which is very nice because you probably don't have much crit rate on, but also if you're able to get 4 pieces with attack on them, keep that in mind, when your HP is below 70%, your crit rate increases by an additional 24%. Now 70% is not that low of HP, so you can really float there. And the increased 24%, dude, with that you've got a perfect 38%, meaning basically almost half the time with whatever you have on your gear, you're going to be critting. That's really good. The second set that I recommend that you build for Diluc in the early game is called Braveheart. This one's a really nice one because you can get 2 pieces and it'll already give you a huge bonus, as good as the Gladiators set later on that we'll talk about. The 2-piece set increases your attack by 18%, just flat off the bat, no downside. And then with the 4-piece set, if you really need it, it increases damage by 30% against enemies with more than 50% HP, which all enemies will at one point be that high. Please keep in mind that this is a set you want to shoot for if you can't get 4 pieces of any one given set. The Braveheart's first set bonus is really, really strong. Now let's talk about ARs 35 through 45. I am still in this range. Now I'll explain why I set the high bounds to be AR 45 once we get to the high ranks, but let's just get into this. Now, I know I really emphasize that you want pyro damage in your build, and that is still true if you can get it on your cup, but this AR, you're still not going to be gearing into a specifically fire-based build, despite them being available at this point. The reason for this is, at least on launch of the game, resin is not easy to come by, and you are going to want that for other things. Currently, if you go ahead and get yourself a Crimson Witch of the Flames build, which is, we're going to talk about this is the endgame set, you're going to spend a bunch of resin to get most likely purple pieces that you will then replace, which is why I think you want to go into the next build we're going to talk about. This set is called Gladiator's Finale, and it is easily the most accessible and one of the best mid-game sets in the game. What I'm saying is this set drops along with the Wanderer's Troop set from the overworld bosses that you will need to farm anyway for awakening materials, and this set is phenomenal. Now you will notice that the first piece of this set gives you the same bonus as Braveheart. So if these pieces that you pull from the dropped world bosses don't have better stats than your Braveheart set, if you were currently using it, don't upgrade yet. However, the 4-part bonus is if the wielder of this artifact set uses a sword, claymore, polearm, increase their normal attack by 35%. 35% is enormous, and we are using Diluc, obviously, who does use a claymore, so we can reap this benefit immediately. Now, I can already hear you complaining. Gladiator's Finale set does not help you with fire at all. Why would we go for it? Let's talk about how that's not an issue with Diluc at this point in the game. If you look at her talents here, you can see that Searing Onslaught as well as Dawn both scale with our general attack stat. So with our attack stat going up, our fire damage is going to go up as well. This includes our normal attacks, but that was a given. I will grant that if we had a fire set like the Crimson Witch of the Flames, we will go over that in a second, we would be dealing more damage. However, since that costs a lot of resin and only achieves one thing, getting the set, we shouldn't be doing that in this stage of the game. Now we can get into how you should be gearing for the end game of patch 1.0, AR 45 and above. Off the bat, the first change that you'll want to be doing is changing your priorities from attack straight to both attack and crit, as you should have enough artifacts to be able to focus all 4 of these stats: attack flat, attack percent, crit rate, and crit damage. In addition to these stats, you also want to be seeking out specifically pyro damage as a main stat, and that can only be found on your cup artifact. The set we're going to be looking at now, and this is the definitive Diluc set, is Crimson Witch of the Flames, which specifically does pyro damage. Now you can see here its first bonus is just a flat pyro damage increase, which is like having another cup artifact, but a little bit weaker. And then we get into the real damage, which is part 4. Increases overload and burning damage by 40%, increases vaporize and melt damage by 15%, and using an elemental skill increases the 2-piece set effects by 50% for 10 seconds. This is insane. I would also like to point out that it maxes out at 3 stacks, and that counts for every single part of your E ability. So, if you just use your ability to completion one time, you have reaped the benefits of this entire set. Now the reason we wait until AR 45 to do this is because now is the time that you'll be spending your resin on something you won't be replacing soon afterwards. See, this set only comes from a domain in which you have a chance of getting a piece of this set, which there are 5 of, or a piece of 2 other sets that drop in the same domain. So you can understand why just getting 5 pieces of this set is a resin sink. At the same time, you're looking at different stats, and the stats that you roll will not be the ones that you want the majority of the time. If you're farming this set early, there's a chance you'll luck out and get god stats, only to replace them later with a gold piece, as purple pieces will always be less powerful. This is why I recommend the Gladiator's Longing for that stretch of time, as you will get those pieces anyway with the things you need to do, like awaken your characters. Alright, so you get it. Diluc is Fireboy. He's the guy that you want to light things on fire, explode stuff, you know. But what teams really benefit from having somebody like that on them? Now, if you're wailing like me, I think a team like this, except with the swap out of Barbara for Chi-Chi, is the quintessential Diluc team. Let's talk about our pieces of any given team first, though. Diluc is our main DPS carry. You want 2 enablers, in this case it'll be Facial and Venti, and a healer for the Abyss, which is Barbara in my case, but I would prefer it to be Chi-Chi, and we'll get into that. Diluc is our carry. We don't really have to talk about him, but let's talk about what Facial does for the team. Most of our damage is going to come from Diluc, but not directly from him. A lot of it will come from what is called a superconduct reaction between Facial's Oz ability and Diluc's fire. A lot of these pieces can be swapped out, but I think the general purpose of the team will always be the same for a Diluc team. You want somebody who can group up enemies, so Venti will do a great job of that, but if you don't have Venti, Sucrose, arguably free-to-play character, will do the job just fine. You'll want someone to help with elemental reactions. I think Overload is the best one you can do for this, as Diluc will not have high elemental mastery. And then a healer just to keep you alive, but in this case, Barbara and Chi-Chi do a very similar job of also setting up elemental reactions. I want to expand on the healer's elemental reactions as well. Barbara and Chi-Chi both set up what are called amplifying elemental reactions, Melt and Vaporize. While Melt would be better as it's a 2-time multiplier for anything that Diluc does, Vaporize is a 1.5 times multiplier and helps out quite a bit anyway, along with helping with the healing of the team. The general playstyle is going to be something along the lines of summon Facial's Bird, switch to Barbara for any damage buffs that you have, be that Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers or just her water buff, switch to Venti to group them up, and then let loose with Diluc until you can't deal fire damage anymore, then repeat. I'm going to show off this playstyle right now on a ley lines. So, first thing we do is summon Oz so that he can deal some damage. Then we want to group them up if we have our ult. We don't quite yet, but I can grab it. Boom. Group them up. Switch to Barber for the damage bonus as I have the Thrilling Tales, and then move in and start dealing damage with Mr. Genshin Impact. More enemies coming. Oh, it's unfortunate. We have a fire mage here. Oh, but we broke the shield immediately with the water from Venti's ult. And then continue. So we should have Barbara's book back. We can switch back to her and then continue. Oz should be back, so we bring her out. Him, rather. And get our fire damage bonus. And why did you swing that way? And continue with our gameplay. We're gaming. Let's pull Oz over. Oh, well, he died. Anyway, you get the point. Now, I understand that not everybody will have the same characters, so I'm going to go through a couple alternatives for this team that might make a little bit more sense for you. Other than Faisal, anyone who can set up elemental reactions for Diluc, so not a fire user, would be beneficial to you. So I could see, in my case, Beto would do well here. If you want extra bulk, although I don't recommend it, any Geo user could be done here. Kaya is actually a really good choice here as he sets up melt reactions. Not very efficiently, mind you, but he does if you need that spot to be filled. A replacement for Barbara is, let's go back to it, is Noelle if you have her. Anyone who really can heal. Jean if you have her is really good because she mixes with any element that's currently out on the field. Chi-Chi, like I was saying, is the perfect healer for Diluc. And then the only replacement I can really see for Venti is either another elemental reactor if you don't have Sucrose, but I highly recommend Sucrose as grouping up enemies cannot be understated in how powerful it is for any damage dealer, but especially for Diluc. Now the last thing that I want to go over here is some advanced techniques that you can use for Diluc and just a way to optimize the actual gameplay aspect of playing this character. Like for instance, when you're using his E combo, you'll always want to be weaving in normal attacks in between, like so. See how I'm swinging in between each one? This is sort of a fighting game tactic where it cancels the animation so you don't have to wait at all to get to the next stage of his E ability. It also really benefits the use of the debate club, and I will show this in a moment, because it lets you get in all the damage that is promised from its blunt conclusion. I'll show. E, swing. See how there were two numbers that popped up? E, swing, two numbers again. And this is to demonstrate the glitch as well. Well, he's dead, but trust me, two numbers would have come up. So the next thing that I want to highlight in this advanced section is that you shouldn't be using your E skill, 1, 2, 3, and then ulting, because while that theoretically does increase the amount of time that you have dealing fire damage, it actually is a cut to your DPS, and that is because of this second talent, Blessing of the Phoenix. The Pyro enchantment provided by this Dawn lasts 4 seconds longer, not important. Additionally, Diluc gains 20% Pyro damage bonus during the duration of this effect. That's a direct damage increase to your E. And at the end of the day, this is a damage increase in general if you're working for burst damage, and I will show you that right now. See, we only get that far down the bar. Here I'm going to show the doing the ult first. So we start. Do our E combo. And then we even have extra time to continue swinging afterwards, which is a lot of damage. See how much further down the bar we are? See, not only did that end up being more damage with just the abilities, it is also more efficient time-wise for bursting out damage, to the point that I was able to swing a few more times the second time. Now, just to show you what I currently have on my Diluc, I do not have the Wolf's Gravestone, and I'm not willing to spend money on a weapon, so I was lucky enough to pull the Skyward Pride, which is a little bit worse, but still gets the job done quite well. It's not quite leveled up, as I have just hit AR 40. And then as far as artifacts, I am not yet AR 45, so putting my money where my mouth is, I am using only the Gladiator set. I haven't even gotten a gold headpiece that I want yet. See, like the stats on this one are defense as its main stat. It's full Gladiators until I hit AR 45, and then I'm going to start using my resin to get more of these Crimson Witch of the Flames set pieces. See, now, I did get a few of these because I was young and naive a couple weeks ago. Used my resin on some things that I did replace. So take my example and just use the Gladiators set until you hit AR 45, where you get pieces that you will not be replacing anytime soon. I'd like to continue by saying that this set is very far from optimized, even from my point in the game. Like, for instance, this has like HP on it. The flower or the feather has like energy recharge on it, which you don't want on Diluc since he regenerates it so fast. Anyway, I've got like defense and HP on my feather, which is supposed to be one of your strongest pieces. There's a lot of room for improvement, but this thing really gets the job done for right now where I am in the game. But at the end of the day, thank you for watching. My name is Dylan Wallach. I stream every day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 p.m. EST, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, please like and leave a comment down below, and I will see you in the next one. See you guys.